Making drawer boxes for a dresser can be difficult if you don't have the right tools, especially if you want to incorporate undermount drawer slides that require a 1/2-inch recess on the bottom of the drawer. Today, we're going to make them only using a track saw and a pocket hole jig. I'll tell you why I did this way, so stay tuned. Alright, so in the shop, we've got to break down these large pieces of Baltic birch plywood, which are nice and heavy. So adding these supports on the edge of my workbench to properly support the piece of plywood as I cut them. I also add some styrofoam on the bottom to save my worktop, and then just throw that plywood up there. If you own a track saw, you better have these TSO guide rail connectors, as they are a game changer when it comes to connecting two tracks together. They make the process so much easier, and I have never had to realign them. I typically cut off that factory edge first and then make the rest of my rip cuts along the plywood, and we'll come back later to do all of the cross cuts. And I always label my parts with painter's tape as to not get confused which panels I have cut first. And I'm going off plans that I have made for a modular dresser, and I have a video for that coming out soon. So if you're interested in that and want to see that video, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. So in making all of these cross cuts, I always make sure to use the scoring feature on my track saw, which just cuts about like a millimeter down and then do the full cut after that. This avoids all the splintering that can happen when cutting plywood. Now I set up a stop on my table so that I can easily cut all of the drawer sides to the exact same height. This allows me to keep that consistency throughout the entire drawer without needing to measure every single time. This is one of the sneaky ways you can maintain that exact consistency without having a table saw. In my shop, there's not enough room for a table saw, which is why I have the track saw, which kind of leads me to why I am making these drawers this way. I was wanting undermount drawer slides for this modular dresser that I am building, but undermount drawer slides require that 1/2-inch recess from the drawer bottom. A very popular way to do this is to route a dado in the drawer slides that accepts a drawer bottom. However, a great way to do this is with a router table or a table saw, which I have neither. So with the limited tools that I have in the shop, this is the way that I have decided to make my drawer boxes. So right now, cutting pocket holes into all of the drawer bottoms, as well as the drawer sides. I spaced my pocket holes out 6 inches from each other, which I figured would be enough for the drawer. And again, I'm using 1/2-inch Baltic birch plywood for the drawer sides and bottom. And if you're new to woodworking, just remember that there are always multiple ways to do something. This is not a traditional way to build a drawer box, but it's a way that I have found and works well for me. For the drawer front and back, I ended up adding 3 pocket holes on each side. I actually just recently got this pocket hole jig. Before I had the handheld one, and I highly recommend getting this tabletop one as it speeds up the process so much more. And I know they have even newer ones than this, but this one was on sale somewhere at the time. After trimming about 10 pounds of hair off my head, it was time to sand the edges of the plywood. Since this is finish grade plywood, I did not sand the faces of the plywood. In my opinion, the edges of a drawer box don't need to have a nice round over, so I decided to just edge sand these using an edge sander by Fastcap, which is actually designed for edge banding, but I'm using it on these sharper edges just to get that done. And since we don't have the shop vac running on this, make sure to wear a respirator while sanding these down. Now it's time to build the drawer box. The idea here is to add a 1/2-inch spacer for the drawer bottom. Then add the sides of the drawer box and use parallel clamps to clamp everything super tight. That way we can drive those pocket screws in. This will give us that 1/2 inch recess we're looking for on the bottom of the drawer. I highly recommend doing a trial run before actually gluing up your first one. And you can optionally add glue to all the joints. I decided to add glue just to make it that much stronger. You can see on my bench I added some stops to help with holding that clamp together so that I could push up against it when gluing it. I just traced around the drawer bottom on the sides so that I would know where to glue when gluing all of the sides. The drawer bottom was not perfectly flat, so I needed to add some weights to keep it down so that the glue wouldn't spread all over and everything would be clamped properly. So it's just adding the glue to the sides and then the front and back of the drawer, and then clamp everything down. I got the idea to build a drawer this way from a Dave Stanton video where he built it in a similar way, but he put the drawer bottom on the workbench so that it could be used with side mount drawer slides. Once you flip the drawer over, you'll want to make sure that the height is correct. So just grab that 1/2 inch spacer to verify the height is correct all the way around the drawer. Once that's done, sink all those pocket screws in and you'll have a very solid drawer. I'd recommend to have additional clamps ready in the event you need to help persuade the drawer to move in the right direction. After the bottom screws were added, I added the side screws on the drawer. So it's a very simple process in building these drawers. However, you want to make sure your cuts are perfectly square or else your drawer will not be square, because there's no persuading this to move after everything's been screwed to the bottom. But I was able to check for square and everything worked out great. After building the drawers, I installed the undermount drawer slides, which the only thing I did different here was I used a Forstner bit to cut out that groove that's needed for the undermount drawer slides. I just used a 3/4 inch Forstner bit to drill them out. Just make sure to go really slow as these can start to move a little. And then I used a chisel to clean it up. Then I just used the actual drawer slide to mark where the hole for that receiving pin needed to go and just drilled that out. And then added the undermount clips to the bottom, installed the drawer slides, and everything was good to go. Again, this is part of a new modular dresser that I'm building, so stay tuned for that video. But this worked out great. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you on the next one.